Hi, hello. So for this lesson, we're actually going to talk about what we call law of cosines. So I know before we talked about law of sines, which law of sines is actually going to be what's in your warm-up. So I'm going to skip that for right now. So we're going to just kind of dive right into law of cosines. So for law of cosines, this is going to happen when we have two sides and only one angle. So really this is going to happen when we have a side-side-side or a side-angle-side triangle. So, kind of diving right in, with the law of cosines, there's going to be several different ways that we can write our formula. So we're actually going to start with solving for side C. So that being said, across from angle A is going to give me side A, across from angle B is going to give me side B. So now that we have the entire triangle labeled, now we're going to actually write our formula, which is going to expand, or not expand, but solve for just side C. Now, what's nice about law of cosines is it's kind of an expansion, or an extension rather, of the Pythagorean theorem. So if you remember, your Pythagorean theorem is going to be a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we use the Pythagorean theorem whenever we're solving for sides in a right triangle. But notice we're working in oblique triangles. So we can't really necessarily use the Pythagorean theorem, but the law of cosines is kind of an extension on how we can use it. So with the law of cosines, we're going to solve for side C. We're going to use the adjacent sides and then that actual angle that it is across from. So for solving for side C, this is actually going to be c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So there's kind of your Pythagorean theorem right there. But then we're going to subtract 2 times AB, which is your adjacent sides, and then cosine of the actual angle in question, which is going to be angle C. So then if I were to solve for, say, side A or side B, it's going to be the same logic. So let's do for side A. So I'm going to use the adjacent sides, which would be B and C. So we're going to have A squared, since that's what we're solving for, equal to your adjacent sides, which is B and C. So B squared plus C squared. And then you're going to subtract 2 times those angles, or sides rather, so 2BC, and then cosine of that angle in question, which in this case would be A. So now I would say take a minute, try to come up with the equation for side B. That way you can kind of discover a pattern, hopefully. So for side B, once again, we're going to use the adjacent sides, but you're going to start with that side. So B squared is going to be equal to A squared plus C squared. And then we're going to subtract 2AC and then cosine of angle B. So notice how your formulas are going to start and end with that same letter. So if we start with A, we should end with A. If we start with B, we should end with B. If we start with C, we should end with C. So that's kind of another good thing to kind of keep in mind. All right, so down here, we're going to kind of jump into the first problem. So I'm going to do these on scratch paper just because these kind of bleed through, so I don't want there to be a lot of muddiness on the back. So for the very first one, so we're given big A, little b, and then, whoop, you can't see. So we're given, whoops, now I forgot how to talk. Everything's fine. So we have big A, which is an angle, little b, and little c, which are going to be your sides. So I'm going to draw just any sort of triangle. It doesn't really matter how you draw it. So I'm going to label just A, B, and then C. So one thing that is important when you're drawing is you want to make sure that you're not drawing a right triangle, because none of these triangles should be right triangles. They're all going to be oblique triangles. So I'm given that A is going to be 50 degrees. I know side B is going to be 15. And then I know side C, which is across from angle C, is going to be 21. So if you look, we have a side angle side triangle here, which means if you look back over here, that's going to be indicative that we're going to use our law of cosines, which is going to be from the beginning. All right, so I want to solve this triangle, meaning I still need to look for angle B, angle C, and then I need to solve for side A. So I'm going to start by doing law of cosines to find side A. So my formula set up, I'm going to do A squared. It's going to be equal to B squared plus C squared, and then minus 2BC, and then cosine of angle A. So I'm going to plug all this information in from my triangle. So I know I'm solving for A, so I'm going to leave this as just A squared. and then my b value, which is going to be 15, so 15 squared, plus my c value squared, which is going to be 21, and then minus 2 times my b value, which is 15, times my c value, which is 21, and then cosine of my angle A, which is 50. Now notice how we still have this squared over here with my a value, so I need to get rid of that squared. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to have the square root of 15 squared plus 21 squared minus 2, 15, 21, and then cosine 50. And then all that under the radical. Okay, so now I'm ready to kind of go over to my calculator. So that's kind of why I'm doing this on paper and not my iPad. All right, so zoom out as much as I possibly can. So you can see my full calculator. So I just reset my calculator, but just in case, I'm gonna go to menu. I'm gonna go down to, system, press execute. And then to reset, I'm gonna do F5, F2, and then F1 to confirm. So now that my calculator is reset, I'm gonna go back to run matrix. Now, when you are in run matrix after you just reset your calculator, what I want you to kind of pay attention to is the mode that your calculator is in. So right now we are in radian mode, but all of your values over here for law of sine, law of cosine, we're gonna be using degrees. So I need to kind of switch this over to the correct mode. So in order to switch it over, I'm gonna do shift, menu, and then I'm gonna come down to angle down here. So I'm gonna scroll down, and I want it to be in degree mode, so I'm gonna press F1, that corresponds to degree. And then you can press execute, and it'll take you right back to run matrix. And now hopefully you can see that we are in degree mode. So we're good to go. So I'm just going to type all this in and see what we get. So square root 15 squared plus 21 squared minus 2 times 15 times 21, and then cosine of 50, which is going to give me an a value of that. So 16.1569. So for the work, you want to do 4 decimal places because you want to use as many decimal places as possible when you're actually plugging in that value. But for the final answer, we're really just going to want maybe 2 or 3. I would definitely check the directions on any assessment so that you are understanding how many decimal places are expected. All right, so now that we have side A, now I'm actually going to move over to finding these missing angles over here for, whoops, can't see. Now I'm going to move over to finding B and C. So I'm going to move you out of the way. We'll bring it back when we need it. So to find those angles, now that I have a pair, I have, still can't see. Now that I have angle A and side A, now I have a pair of values that I can do law of sines. So now down here, so I'm going to do a setup. So I'm going to do sine of 50 over our A value. So this is why we need those 4 decimals, because I'm going to plug it in. So the more decimal places you have, the more accurate your answer will be. Now, if I want to find, say, angle B up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write sine B, and that's going to be all over 15, which is your side. So now I'm going to set this equation up so I can solve for angle B. So when I cross multiply, so I'm going to have 16.1569 sine B, and then that's going to be equal to 15 sine 50. So now I'm going to divide by 16.1569, so we're going to have sine B is equal to 15 sine 50 divided by 16.1569. All right, and then in order to get rid of that sine, I'm going to do inverse sine on both sides. So now I'm going to have B is equal to inverse sine of 15 sine 50 divided by 16.1569. So notice how I didn't touch a calculator at all. What I want to do is I want to get it down to exact form first, and then once you get it to exact form, then we're going to jump over to our calculator. So over here, so in order to get inverse sine, you're going to do shift sine, and then I have that parenthesis right here, so I'm going to do parentheses and then fraction. So 15 sine 50, then divide by 16.1569. Now, notice how the 16.1568512 is actually the most recent answer. So what would actually be even better, more accurate, is if you did shift answer and you just recalled that previous value. So this is actually going to be way more accurate. So that tells us that angle B is going to be 45.3322 degrees. All right. Now I'm ready to go ahead and find angle C. Now to find angle C, I'm just going to jump right over here, back up here. So to find angle C, we already have the measure of angle A from over here, and then we found the measure of angle B down here. So what I can do is I can do 180 degrees minus angle A and then minus angle B. So 180 degrees minus angle A, which is going to be 50, then minus angle B, which we found down here to be 45.3322. So of course, over here, just to show you everything in the calculator. Now, once again, that 45, that still can't see, that 45 over here is actually our most recent answer. So what I'm gonna do on my calculator is actually do 180 minus 50, then minus the answer. I always wanna recall that value as much as I can because that's less I have to type in. Okay, so that's gonna give us 84.66779491. So I'm gonna write the expanded value, so 6678. Okay, and then now that we have all of our values, now you can write them down here in your blanks or wherever you need to. So for your final answer, in this case, I'm only going to want 2 decimal places. So your A value, which is your 16.1569, but I'm going to round this and rewrite 16.16. And then my angle B here, I'm going to write 45.33. And then angle C is going to be 84.67. Okay, and then down here, I still need to find the area. So I'm going to come back over here. So for your area, so just as a little reminder, your area, you have some options on what formula you want to use. So you can use 1/2 AB sine C, which is the one that I typically always default to. Or you also can do 1/2 BC sine A. Or you could also do AC, or 1/2 AC sine B. So those are your 3 options for area. Doesn't really matter which one you do. But like I said, I usually default to this top one. So for the area, let's use that top one. So I'm going to have 1/2 times my A value, which is going to be the 16.1569. So times 16.1569. And then times my B value, which over yonder, where are you? That was a given value, so that's going to be 15, which is also down here. I'm blind. Everything's fine. All right, so then times 15, and then we're going to want sine of angle C. So times sine of angle C, which we found up here. Probably should label this so I don't have to look for it. There we go. So then sine of 84.6678. So 84.6678. So this is everything that I want to type in that calculator, and let's see what we get. I should not have done that, but you know what? It's fine. So 1/2 is the same as 0.5, and then times 16.1569 times 15 times sine of 84.6678. So that's going to give me an area. Hopefully I typed everything in right. So that's going to give me an area of approximately 120.6524. So once again, for the final answer, we're just going to want the 2 decimal values. So for the area, I'm just going to write 120.65. So there's your first law of cosine problem. So you can probably see why I'm deciding to write everything on a separate piece, because there's no way I'm going to fit all that on there. I write kind of big when I write in pen. All right, so now let's go ahead and move on to another one. So that was a side angle side problem over here. But now I want to show you a side 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 problem so that you can get a little bit of variation. So now we're going to kind of jump down to number 3. So once again, I'm going to come over here. All right, so I'm given that little a, little b, and little c are going to be those corresponding values. So I'm going to draw an oblique triangle. I'm going to distort it a little bit on purpose. I can't draw. Everything's fine. So I'm going to put a over here because why not? Let's do b up here, and then we'll do c down here. So little a is going to be across from angle A, which is going to be 12. And then little b, which is going to be across from angle B. And then little c across from angle C. So we have our side triangle. So we're still going to do law of cosines in order to solve. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order. I'm going to solve for angle A first. So because of that, my formula I'm going to use is going to be a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc, and then cosine of A. So I'm going to plug everything in. So my little a value is going to be 12. So 12 squared is equal to b squared, which is going to be 17 squared, plus c squared, which is going to be 9 squared, then minus 2 times my b value of 17 times my c value of 9. And then we're solving for that angle. So we're going to solve for A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat this just like you would an equation. So I'm going to subtract and divide whatever I can over. So I need to subtract 17 squared on both sides and then subtract 9 squared on both sides. So that's where I'm going to start. So what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. So notice how I'm not writing any values out. I'm just going to leave everything exactly how it is. Okay, and then that's going to leave me with negative 2, 17 times 9 cosine A. All right, now in this case, now I still have negative 2 times 17 times 9, so I need to divide all these values. So I'm going to divide by negative 2, 17, 9 on both sides. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and flip the sides. So all I have left over here, so these are going to simplify to 1. So all I have left on this side is going to be cosine A. So I'm going to write cosine A. I'm going to go ahead and flip it. And that's going to be equal to everything over here. So this is going to be 12 squared minus 17 squared minus 9 squared. And that's going to be over negative 2, 17, and 9. All right, so now I still need to get rid of this cosine over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the inverse of both sides. So I'm going to do inverse cosine. So that's going to leave me with A equals inverse cosine 12 squared minus 17 squared minus 9 squared. And that's going to be all over negative 2 times 17 times 9. So once again, notice how I did not touch a calculator at any point in this problem yet. But now that I have it in simplest form, now I'm going to jump over to my calculator and plug everything in. All right, so I'm going to do inverse cosine. So I need to do shift cosine, which is going to open up that inverse. So I'm going to do a parentheses and then open up a fraction. So 12 squared minus 17 squared minus 9 squared. And that's going to be all over negative 2, parentheses 17, and then parentheses 9. Then I'm going to close those parentheses, and then there's my angle. So I know that angle A here is going to be about 42.3909 degrees. Okay, so now that we have one angle, I still need to find my other two angles. Now, the thing about that is technically you have options on what you can do next. So now that I have angle A down here, now I have a pair of values. So now technically I could do law of sines if I wanted to find B and C, or I could do law of cosine again to find B and or C. So it's really up to you on what you're more comfortable with. Personally, I will say law of cosine would be your better option, just because if you mess up on this value down here and you use it for law of sines, you're kind of doomed before you start. So if you want a safe option, but it is a little bit more in depth, then I would say do law of cosine. But if you're very confident in your answer down here and you're like, I know it's right, I know I'm good, then that tells you that you should be safe to use law of sines. So Do you want a little bit more difficult option, but it comes with less risk, or do you want an easier option, but it comes with more risk? So it just depends on your confidence and how you're feeling about your problem. But just for practice sakes, I'm going to go ahead and just do law of cosine again, just because I want you guys to practice it. But if you want to do law of sine, you go right ahead. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and solve for angle B. So I'm going to do the same idea over here, but I'm going to use a different formula. So now that I'm using B, now that's going to be the start of my equation. And then I'm going to use the adjacent sides. So then I'm going to have a squared plus c squared, then minus 2ac, then cosine of b. So when I plug in, so we're going to have b squared, which is going to be 17 squared, equals a squared, which is going to be 12 squared, plus c squared, which is 9 squared, minus 2 times my a value, which is going to be 12, times my c value, which is 9. And then, of course, I want to solve for b. So we've got cosine b over there at the end. So I'm going to do the same steps as I did over here. We're going to get everything to the other side. We're going to isolate and solve for b. So I'm going to subtract 12 squared and 9 squared. I'm going to do a couple steps. So that's going to leave me with 17 squared minus 12 squared minus 9 squared. And then that's going to equal negative 2 times 12 times 9 cosine b. So now I need to divide both sides by negative 2 times 12 times 9. So once again, I'm not even going to touch that calculator yet. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and flip the sides. So your negative 2, your 12, and your 9 are going to cross out on the right side. So all you have left is your cosine b. So I'm going to rewrite cosine b on the left side. I'm going to go ahead and flip it. And that's going to equal 17 squared minus 12 squared minus 9 squared. And that's going to be over negative 2, 12, and then 9. So now I need to do inverse cosine of both sides. So that's going to leave me with b equals inverse cosine 17 squared minus 12 squared minus 9 squared over negative 2 times 12 times 9. That's a 9. All right, so now that I have everything solved for, now I'm ready to use my calculator. So once again, inverse cosine. So 17 squared minus 12 squared minus 9 squared all over negative 2 times 12 and then times 9, which is going to give me an angle of 107.2353. That's a 3. Everything's fine. Degrees. Okay, so now that we have angle A and angle B, now I can just do my 180 minus those two angles to find angle C. Or technically you could do law of cosines again if you're not confident in these answers. Okay, so I'm pretty confident in my answers, so I'm just going to do angle C, which these really should have angles. So angle C is going to be 180 degrees minus angle B, nope, minus angle A minus then angle B. I guess the order doesn't really matter. So 180, and then I'm going to recall this most recent answer for angle B, and then I'll come up here and I'll do my angle A, which is the 42. So minus 42 point, I'm going to be extra 39092.854. I'm going to take as many decimal places as I can. So then that's going to give me 30.3738 degrees. All right, so now we have all of our values here, but now we still need to find the area. So I'm going to go ahead and now find the area of this triangle. So I'm just going to come back up here to the top. So my area, so once again, I'm just going to default to 1/2 AB sine C. But once again, doesn't matter which one you use. So when I plug in, so 1/2 times my A value, which is 12, times my B value, which is 17, and then times angle C, which we found to be 30.3738. which luckily that's also the most recent value that we did in the calculator, so I can just recall it. So 0.5 times 12 times 17 times sine, not pi, not negative. There we go. So now we have an area of 51.5751. Math is hard. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here. So when you're writing your answers in, remember we are going to round to 2 decimal places for right now. For this video, for the notes, we're rounding to 2. So angle A in this case is going to be 42.39. Then angle B is going to be 107.24. Angle C, 37. Sorry, y'all, my brain just keeps like disconnecting today. All right, and then for the area is going to be 51.58. All right, so there's kind of your crash course in law of cosines. So hopefully this helps. Good luck.